I'm about to show you something extremely controversial. It's even illegal in the state of Israel to obtain this. And if you do obtain it, it's illegal to show it and or talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that, right? Now, you might ask yourself, why is it illegal to obtain this in the state of Israel? Because it proves through your DNA that Jews around the world have no ancestral ties to the land of Israel. Because it proves through your DNA that Jews around the world have no ancestral ties to the land of Israel.
We Jews have been in the land of Israel since the times of biblical Joshua.
Who is we? No, really, who is we? You live in Israel, so I don't expect you to be able to provide genetic or ancestral receipts for your claims about us Jews, because those kinds of receipts are illegal in Israel without a court order and other special permissions. The Jerusalem Post explains, such a thing cannot exist as kits sold directly to the public, going on to say that they have possible effects on subjects and their families. Furthermore, the national implications of these tests could hold or affect, nice grammar, Jerusalem Post, could hold or affect with Israel being a government-recognized Jewish state. Don't you just love when they say the quiet parts out loud? But since they won't let you get receipts for us Jews, I brought my own. Wow. So I, an Ashkenazi, have no genetic or ancestral ties to the region of historic Palestine. I, an Ashkenazi, have no genetic or ancestral ties to the region of historic Palestine. And yet Israel still claims it's my homeland, which I could move to and become a citizen of under the ironically named Law of Return.
A grand rising kings and queens, welcome back to my YouTube space. All of you across the ocean and in Africa, peace, love, and elevation to all of you. Now, today I'm stepping into one of the deepest, most controversial and long hidden truths of all time. Jewish Americans are now finding out through DNA tests that they are not the original Jews. Now, the question is, who are the real Jews? Because those who have been knowing for all times that are the real Jews ain't the real Jews. But in this video, we are going to find out. We are going to find out. This commentary is not just about genetics, it's about identity, history, and spiritual power. Stay locked in up to the end. Now, before I continue, I want you to watch these clips and then we come back with my commentary.
You heard of the Khazarim?
Yeah, that's us. That's me, actually.
Okay, so what is your... this is a question that comes from outside of Israel. What is your opinion about the theory that Ashkenazim came from Khazarim?
It seems relevant. It's quite obvious that white Jewish people, Ashkenazim from Europe, are not genetically, as much as I can tell, I'm not an expert, but they don't look the same like Arab Jews, people that came from Arab countries. And Ethiopians, I don't think there's a lot of, there may be some genetic relations, but there's a lot of genetic differences. And any theory that says that we're not genetically come from the same ancestors makes sense to me.
Ashkenaz is one of the Gentile nations. Now, 80 to 85% of today's so-called Jewry, those who claim to be Jews in the world today, 80 to 85% of them are what is known as Ashkenazi Jews. And an Ashkenazi Jew is so named because he primarily descends from this guy in the Bible named Ashkenaz, which is clearly listed as one of the Gentile nations. Now, the reason for this is that there was a nation of people who were Europeans, white people, known as the Khazars. And in the 8th century after Christ, the whole nation of the Khazars turned unto Judaism. They converted to the religion of Judaism. Of course, it was a false, Christ-rejecting religion. And for a few hundred years, the empire of the Khazars was a power in Eastern Europe, and they followed the religion of Judaism. But eventually they were defeated by the Russians, and they were scattered into Eastern Europe. And so a lot of the Eastern European Jews today are the descendants of the Khazars.
And so a lot of the Eastern European Jews today are the descendants of the Khazars.
I was today years old when I found out.
Ashkenaz, the eldest of the three sons of Gomer, the son of Japhet, and the name of a kingdom, referencing these same verses. Most likely it was the Scythian kingdom. And then after a few hundred years, they're lost from history. So they have zero to do with Israel, zero to do with Jewish people, zero to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. Zero. You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So a little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany, they looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany, so they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history, look into it, check the Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, the archaeological works, you'll find the exact same thing.
Key takeaway points and food for thought. 1. The original Jews are defined as those from the line of Judah. Judah was the fourth son of Jacob. 2. Ashkenaz was the first son of Gomer and is from the line of Japheth and not Shem. 3. They labeled themselves as Ashkenaz but claimed to be from the line of Shem. If they knew their history, would this error have been made? 4. The term Ashkenazi Jew is historically incorrect, as previously mentioned Ashkenaz and Judah are from separate lineages. 5. They self-identified as Ashkenazi and were not labeled as such. Due to the confusion in establishing their true lineage, one could suggest this has been a ploy to hijack the identity of an already established people. 6. It's claimed that the Ashkenazi people have been lost to history. But, are people ever lost to history, or are they invaded, conquered and assimilated?
I'm a Palestinian. From 21 until 48, I carried a Palestinian passport. There was no such thing in this area as Jews and Arabs and Palestinians. There were Jews and Arabs.
Don't you... I mean, you deny that there was a Palestine Arab people before, but there is now a Palestine liberation movement. The history of liberation movements are that they grow. Won't this one grow and become in end, in fact, your biggest enemy?
I don't say there are no Palestinians, but I say there is no such thing as a distinct Palestinian people of all the Palestinians who live in Jordan. Why have the Palestinians in the West Bank become more Palestinians since the 5th of June 67 than they were before? Why didn't they set up a Palestinian country in addition to Jordan? Supposing your premise is right, then what should they have done? They should have set up another independent Palestine and fought from there. They didn't do that. They adopted the fact that they are in Jordan. They've adopted the Jordanian citizens. They are the majority in Jordan. They are in parliament. They are in government. What has happened since? Why have they become more Palestinian conscious since the War of 67?
This feels like Christmas morning. I got a 23andMe ancestry and health kit. I think that I kind of want to start with the ancestry side. And it says ancestry composition. I am 49.9% Ashkenazi Jewish. That's not a huge surprise to me at all, since my mom's side of the family is completely Jewish. My dad's side is not Jewish though. So let's go to there. Let's see what's going on. This is like, I feel really like on the spot. Okay, so I'm 100% European, which again is not a huge surprise to me, but it's just funny seeing it like that. I'm 49% Ashkenazi Jew, totally. British and Irish and German and French, a little bit Scandinavian, northeastern European, yeah, it's not super exciting, but I kind of know all of that information. I didn't realize how much of my family was from Germany though, so that's interesting. So let's see if I can get more information on this. It's funny, like I know where like my relatives and stuff came from, but it's kind of fun to see it broken down like this. Yeah, totally not surprising having the British and Irish be pretty strong. The German is though, so I wonder who came from Germany. I wonder if it has to do with the Ashkenazi Jewish part of my family. No really Scandinavian, no Italian. Wow, okay. It's pretty vague. It doesn't give you like, which it makes sense, but there's nothing really random in there. There's a tiny bit of East Asian and Native American, like the slightest. The first thing that they're telling me to do is do the late onset Alzheimer's disease. I do have some dementia in my family, so I wouldn't be super surprised if this was positive, but my heart's racing a little bit. I don't know. So I don't have the whatever, however you say that. So there's zero variants detected, which is, I guess, a positive thing. Cool. So Parkinson's disease. Let's open that guy up. I know that's like a very, so I have 0 variants detected. So age-related macular degeneration, a variant detected, not likely at increased risk. I'm not totally sure what that totally means, but AMD, we're familiar with that condition, but we'll see. I'll do more research on this. Have a slightly increased risk of celiac disease, which I've actually been tested by, like I've gotten blood work and stuff done for celiac disease. And I definitely, gluten is harder for me to digest, but yeah. Interesting.
Let's unravel the mysteries behind Ashkenazi genetics. Ashkenazi Jews are a Jewish diaspora population who formed in the Holy Roman Empire around 1,000 years ago. The total Ashkenazi population is estimated at 10 million people. Today they live mostly in the United States as well as in Israel, where they represent over a third of the Jewish population. They are descended from Levantine Jews who mixed with native Europeans, mostly from southern but also from Eastern Europe. The combination of European and Levantine admixture makes Ashkenazi Jews genetically close to Southern Italians, Sicilians, Greek Islanders, or Maltese people. Using ancestral populations, Ashkenazi Jews can be modeled as being roughly 49% Anatolian Neolithic farmer, 24% steppe, 13% Natufian, and 9% Iranian Neolithic, with minor Caucasian, North African, and East Eurasian contributions. Get your custom DNA report today at world-genetics.com.
The results are in, y'all. And good news, I'm not from the Walmart discount section. First up, we are 50% Jewish. Woo! Yes, I did have a bat mitzvah. Next, we got 26% Indigenous Americas, aka Mexico, aka Aztec warrior. Then we got 14% coming from Spain. Shout out to all those conquistadors. Then 3% Basque. Interesting. This is like the full little map thing they give you. And then I also get to see people I'm related to that I've never even heard about before. Kind of crazy, kind of cool, it's kind of scary.
So you know how in Israel there's a law that bans Israeli Jews from marrying Arabs, Palestinians, Muslims? And they say that this is based on the morale of their holy book, right? But I'm about to show you how this just goes to show that these people don't know the book. And really this law, like about everything else in their regime, is based in white supremacy, racism, and ultimately mid-20th century eugenics. Because the thing is that the most famous and beloved of the Israelites and the Israelite kings, they weren't purebloods. Solomon's mother was a Canaanite. David's grandmother was also a Canaanite, a Moabite to be specific. And a Moabite so famous, she got a whole book in the Bible named after her, the Book of Ruth. What's more is that Ruth and Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, both of these women were widows. And the widow is the carrier of the greatest secret in alchemy. The Freemasons are going to be pretty pissed about me revealing this. But what we call the Philosopher's Stone is actually the widow's elixir. And the sons of the widow are the real heroes of humanity, which is why a Freemason is otherwise called the son of the widow. Also, hi, I'm Eliane, and I wrote a PhD on political identity in Palestine and Israel. Oh, you thought I was just a little twitchy witch? No, that's Dr. Twitchy Witch to you. I also wrote a master's on alchemy and Jungian dream analysis. I know everything. And I've read all of Abraham's books, cover to cover, and some of them in their original language. I'm not from Israel or Palestine or anywhere else but the earth. I have no ethnicity, believe in no nation, and identify with nothing but humanity. And if you're watching this, then you're probably someone who wants to see a world without borders, just like me. And you're also probably someone who understands that identity politics benefits no one but the capitalists. The more identified you are with an age, a gender, a sexuality, a nation, a religion, the easier you are to market to. But the less you identify with, the more you understand that identity is fluid and that you change every single day. That as you watch this video, you're not the same person who watched the last video. Then you're really hard to pin down and categorize. It's really hard to put you in a demographic when you're a shapeshifter. But anyway, back to Ruth, whose book I encourage you to read because it's really short. But basically, Ruth lived with an Israelite woman named Naomi. She got married, her husband died, and eventually when Naomi was sending her and her sister back to her tribe, she decided to stay with Naomi because she loved her so much. She was like, please Naomi, let me go with you and worship your God. Naomi approves, takes her back with her to Israel. She marries an Israelite and eventually becomes the grandmother of King David, a man after God's own heart. And then David, who's basically God's favorite ever, he has a whole harem of Israelite wives that he wins in battle and whatnot. He eventually falls in love with a Canaanite woman named Bathsheba. He sees Bathsheba and she is so beautiful, like man's cannot contain himself. So he sleeps with her even though she's married, and he has such a good time, like he cannot forget that. He wants some more, so he basically sends her husband out to battle and conspires to have him killed so that, he can marry her in peace and have her have his babies. But this makes God angry, and he sends one of his prophets to tell David a whole fable with a moral lesson, which I can get into in another video because it's a super cute story. But basically the lesson is that, like, David, you literally have everything. You have a whole harem of wives, and this poor man, Uriah, had the one wife, and you took her away from him. That's so greedy, bro. And for that, I'ma punish you and unalive your first child with Bathsheba, because I know she's pregnant. But David repents, and God forgives him, and he keeps going. Bathsheba has another son, and his name is Solomon. And we all know that Solomon goes on to be like the king of kings. Solomon is bestowed the honor of building a temple for God, an honor that God did not give to David or anyone before Solomon, and hence the importance of Solomon's temple. The temple built by Hiram Abif, the king of Tyre, who was also a widow's son, who's really the main character in Freemasonry and the Bible's most famous alchemist, and who it is speculated was Solomon's relative. And if the genealogies are correct, and Jesus Christ is really the descendant of Solomon and David, then Yeshua was also a Canaanite. See, because Yahweh says a lot of things throughout the Old Testament that you might think are just absolutely horrid. But even though he has a rep for doing what he says, he doesn't actually follow through on most of the stuff he says he's going to do. Like he repeatedly says throughout the Old Testament that no one is ever going to remember the Canaanites, that the Israelites, they're going to erase them, they're going to eradicate them from the face of the earth, and no one is ever going to hear about them again. And yet here we are, you and I, talking about them. And there goes Yahweh, one book later, picking a Canaanite's descendant to be his favorite king. Bro is a talker, okay? Half the stuff he says, if not more than half, doesn't come to pass. And the modern state of Israel, as we should all know by now, has modeled itself on European colonies, and specifically the French colony, and German tactics for apartheid. Specifically here, that in order for one to maintain a purity of race, which I also don't believe in because it's not scientific, laws need to be implemented to ban intermarriage. But a little bit of critical thinking will show you that if anybody can convert to a religion and then get married, is there any purity of blood being maintained here? Anyway, I think I've rambled enough for now, so come to my live in a few hours. Love you, be free, decategorize yourself.
Now, over the past decades, the popularity of home DNA testing skyrocketed from companies like it was me and 23, I think so, to ancestral DNA. Now, people around the world have been sending off their samples hoping to uncover their roots, and a lot of people have been doing that. Black Americans have been doing that to discover their roots, but something strange began to happen. Jewish Americans, many of whom had proudly identified as descendants of the ancient Israelites, started receiving shocking results. They don't have genetic link to the Middle East, no tie to the ancient Hebrews, no connection to the tribes of Israel. Instead, many found out that their ancestry are tracing back to the Eastern Europe, Poland, Russia, Ukraine, not to Jerusalem, not to Africa. And the question started to rise. Yeah? If we are not the descendants of Israel, then who we are? Okay? And some even question themselves. They were taught that identity. So this wasn't a one-off case. It became a trend. Like the videos I've shown you. Enough people started talking about it online. And even some ministers and professors, they started digging it out. So let me take a moment to break this down. The term Jew today is often referred to or used to describe both the religious and ethnic identity. But biblically, it comes from Judah, one of the 12 tribes of Israel, okay? A tribal nation of people who descended from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, historically, being a Jew wasn't about following a religion. It was about bloodline. It was tribal, it was national, and it was family-based. So, how did European population came to be recognized as the Jews? Because they ain't the real Jews. Now, many scholars point to the Khazar conversion, a powerful kingdom in the Caucasian region that officially converted to Judaism around the 8th century. Now, these were not Semitic people. They weren't from Israel, but they adopted the Jews' faith and began identifying themselves as Jews over time. Now, this became widely accepted, especially after migration into Europe and eventually into America. But here is the key: conversation doesn't change bloodline. Now, you can join a religion, but you cannot convert into an ethnicity. And that's why DNA matters a lot. When you swab your mouth and send your DNA, you are sending your truth. You're uncovering what's in your bones, not just what you believe. And the study now shows that Ashkenazi Jews, majority of Jews in America and Europe, share more genetic markers with Southern Europeans than with Semitic people. And their white DNA often trace back to Caucasian, Slavic, and Mediterranean lineages. Some studies admit there is no consistent genetic marker that defines Jewish identity across all Jewish population. Who matches the Asian Israelites genetically? Who is carrying the Semitic markers? Who matches the Asian migratory patterns of the Hebrews? Now let me tell you, and every day we ask this question, the answer points towards African, specifically from West Africa. Yes. In Nigeria, Ghana, Mali, Cameroon, and some part of Congo, there are tribes that have oral traditional customs and names that trace directly to ancient Israel. For example, the Igbo people of Nigeria have been calling themselves the children of Israel for centuries. And they keep Torah-like customs, practice circumcisions on the 8th day, and observe purity laws. The Akan people in Ghana trace their origin to the ancient Israelites and even carry Hebrew-sounding names. The Lemba of Southern Africa not only claim Israelites ancestry, but their DNA proved it. Studies confirm the Lemba carry the Kohen gene, a priestly marker found among biblical descendants of Aaron. These groups never needed 23andMe to tell them who they are. Their history was preserved through culture, through blood, and through survival. Here's the bombshell. When black people in America lost their DNA, many trace back not just in Africa, but to those same West African tribes, the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Ewe, you just name it, the Bantu, the tribes who were targeted during the transatlantic slave trade. Ask yourself, why were they taken? Why were millions of people from those specific tribes captured and enslaved? And my answer is because it wasn't about labor. It was about breaking the lineage. It was about erasing the truth. It was about separating the original Hebrew from their identity. And that's always leave me with one thing, that black Americans are the truth Israelites of the Bible, the true Jews. Now, when we say life is spiritual, some biblical history or prophecy are being fulfilled. Now, We talk about history, but let's talk about prophecy a little bit, about scripture a little bit. In Deuteronomy 28, God gives the Israelites a warning. If they disobey, they will be scattered among all nations. They will go into slavery on ships. They will become a byword, and their children taken from them, their identity stripped. When you hear that verse, where does it take you? Who does this sound like? White Jews in America or black people in America? Now, no Jewish American was brought into the US on slave ships. No Jewish American was told they were 3/5 of a person. No Jewish American was forbidden to read, whipped into submission, lynched, segregated, and told their history began with chains. But black Americans, Caribbeans black, Afro-Brazilians, African descendants all over the world, even the prophecy fits them. And yet the world still refuses to acknowledge this. Yet you will still refuse to acknowledge this or to know who is the real one. The truth have always been hidden. It was a system, a long plan. Colonizers destroyed African oral traditionals. Churches demonized any black claim to the Bible. European powers propped up white Jews as the chosen people, and black people were told their only history was slavery. And this wasn't ignorance. It was intentional suppression. If the world knew that the real Israelites were black, the whole system would collapse. The entire racial hierarchy built on white supremacy would lose its foundation. And that's why anyone who says black people are the real Jews is labeled anti-Semitic. But here's the irony. How can it be anti-Semitic to claim an identity that is yours by blood? Family, it's not about hate. But this is not about hate, and it's not about division. This is about reclaiming truth, about stepping into your divine identity. We are not just black, that's a color. We are not just African, that's a continent. We are the children of Jacob, the sons and daughters of Zion, the real Hebrews. And that's why they fear the rise of black people. They fear the rise of black Americans. They fear the rise of black people around the world. That's why they try to erase the history of black people, because once we remember who we are, once we understand our true identity, the game changes forever. You are royalty. You are chosen, my brother, and the most imitated, the most oppressed, but also the most resilient and most spiritual rich people on the planet. You don't need validation from DNA. You don't as a black person. You don't need a label from a company. The truth is already in your blood. The truth of black people being the true Israelites is not new. It is just been silenced. There were black scholars in the 1800s and early 1900s already raising the alarm. Ministers, revolutionaries, and Pan-African leaders have been talking about this. Even there's a video on my channel I played about a white missionaries or a white minister was talking about this. And they saw the connection between the enslaved African in the America and the biblical children of Israel, but their voices were muted. Their books were destroyed. Ask yourself, why don't we learn this in school? Why don't they start black history with slavery? Why do they start black history with slavery? Why? Why are so many books banned that speak the lives of black people or speak about black Hebrews? Why is this history never shown in Hollywood films? The reason is because if black people knew who they truly were, the white supremacy system wouldn't survive. It will fall. And the system depends on keeping black people confused, disconnected from Africa, and ashamed of their identity, ashamed of their own self. We must have one who is leading and one who is oppressed to keep the system alive. Even in white, we need to have rich white people and poor white people to keep the system alive. There's a major difference between that we need to understand between to know Judaism is a religion and being Hebrew is an identity. You can be born into Hebrew bloodline and never step foot in a synagogue. You can follow Torah without wearing a yarmulke. or speaking Yiddish. You can be a Christian, Muslim, or spiritual person and still carry Hebrew DNA. And this is where confusion creeps in, because modern Judaism has been shaped by European traditions, language, and interpretations. It became a culture, not a bloodline. It evolved into a club with roles of who is in and who is out, often rejecting anyone with their black skin. But meanwhile, millions of black people carry the blood of Jacob and don't even know it, because their names were changed. Our names were changed. Like my name is Livingstone Osotsi. So my name Livingstone, where did it come from? It was changed. And now I bear the name that is not mine. The lands were taken, the languages were destroyed, the culture was demonized. But now that DNA is exposing the truth. They can't stop it. Now, anytime a black person, especially a celebrity, hints of being an Israelite or question who the real Jews are, the media erupts in outrage. We have seen what happened to people like Kanye West and others. They didn't call the violence. They didn't preach hate. All they did was question the official narrative. And just like that, they got cancelled. Why? Because truth is dangerous and lies, especially when it is coming from a platform too big to control. The media doesn't want a conversation. They want silence. And when black people say, wait a minute, we match the curses in Deuteronomy, we match the migration patterns, they shut it down. But they can't cancel a person who has survived 400 years of slavery, Jim Crow law, colonization, and still rise. You can't cancel truth. Okay? You can't cancel truth. So that's all about the DNA and everything. So when you talk about who are the real Jews are those who match the curses and promises of the Bible. The real Jews are those whose ancestors were taken in ships. The real Jews are those whose language, name, and culture was stripped from them. The real Jews are the people the world tried to erase. The real Jews are those whose history is still being uncovered in African soil. And yes, the real Jews are black people. Not just one tribe, not just one nation, but millions and millions of black people across Africa, Caribbean, the America, and beyond. Descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whose identity is now rising from the ashes. So to every black person listening to this, right now, it's a wake-up call. You are not cast. You are chosen. You are not lost. You are just scattered, and now you are returning. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually, and politically. Okay? It is time to walk in truth. Study your history, learn your tribe origin, honor your ancestors, protect your culture, rebuild your community, and stop waiting for approval from any systems. Okay? Tell me what you think about this video in your comment section. Until next episode, I say peace be with you.